Welcome back to The Line. Last year, voters approved an amendment to the New Mexico Constitution that reshaped the state's old bail system. It was intended to allow violent offenders to be held without bond while awaiting trial, while keeping low-level offenders who were not considered a flight risk out of jail. Seems pretty simple. Now, one of its main purposes was to prevent non-violent offenders from languishing in jail solely because they are too poor to post bond. And just a few months ago, the new court rules created by New Mexico's judiciary to enforce the amendment went into effect. And last week, a bipartisan panel of state lawmakers met to hash out what to do next, Vicki Harrison. And this is the point, the what to do next part is a little bit tricky. Now, Governor Martinez has come out strong saying she wants to, quote, repeal and replace the whole thing because it's letting too many violent folks out of jail too quickly. So the fundamental question is the balancing of the public's right to be kept safe versus the defendant's right to a fair trial or fair pretrial, so to speak. Where is this sitting right now as far as you're concerned? Is anyone winning or losing markedly here? Are defendants on the losing end here? Or does the governor have a point that we're just, this catch and release thing is endangering folks in the streets of New Mexico?
Well, first of all, it's just been put into effect, so we have no idea. I mean, we're talking 3 months worth of data. And according to the Corrections Department themselves, they don't even know if we have enough data yet. And so, again, if you look at it, somebody cannot be let out of jail because they're poor, if they're violent, if they've had past offenses, all of these things. So this is a guy coming in for a non-violent something or another who's never been in jail before. So they're not the people who are then getting out and then committing all these crimes. And I think one thing that frustrates me so much, and this is just like our conversations that we have around CYFD, and people blame CYFD. How about blaming the parents who are not taking care of their kids? How about blaming the criminals who are robbing us? It's not the judges. I mean, our courts are so dramatically underfunded. I'm surprised we even have court anymore. I mean, again, we have courthouses around the state that are turning their lights off half the day because they can't afford utility bills. And I just think it passed 87% of the voters wanted this. It allows judges to keep violent people in jail, and it allows poor people who have not committed crimes and are not violent out. So how can that suddenly be creating this huge crime wave of violent crime? It's apples and oranges, and I think it's a big smokescreen.
Serge, interestingly, the law here is how do I say this? Judges are in a tough spot, as Vicki just said, but there's a balance we're trying to shoot for here in this law that seemed to work on paper, but is it demagoguery? What's going on here? Because as Vic said, we even have some lawmakers saying we need to give it some more time here. What's going on? What's your sense of it?
No, I absolutely think it's jumping the gun to come to any sort of conclusion, right? And it's also missing the point of why we have these rules, right? The point of bail is twofold. First, to keep people from, disappearing between arrest and their trial, and also to provide protection when we deem someone so violent or likely to reoffend, right? The system that we had in place before certainly, didn't leave us in a place with zero crime. There's
excellent point.
There's certainly no evidence to suggest.
We had a few things that happened before 3 months ago.
Right, exactly.
But all this talk is, as Vic was saying, a smokescreen that misses a lot of constitutional rights, the actual concerns and purposes of bail. And the whole point is to not have folks in jail because they're too poor, because we don't need to keep them in there and spend all the money that we would spend towards keeping them in there. This issue is much, much more complex. And instead of focusing on the actual issues, there's this talk about, because of this, there's this huge spike in crime, right? 3 months, correlation is not causation, all that. And there's a long history of, crime in New Mexico being just as high as it is anywhere else in the country under the old rules. The new rules, this new system is, to me, much more constitutionally sound and protective of the people who need the most protecting, while giving judges the leeway to do what they need to do. One problem, right, is of course it's a new system, and anytime you have a new system, you need to figure out how to use it. And judges are very, very smart and used to, coming up with decisions on the fly or
right.
And
part of this is allowing judges to use their own discretion here, individually look at each individual case. And Diane, the idea that, let me read you a quote from the Brown case we're talking about here. Ostensibly, a man named Brown spent a couple of years in prison with no hearing, no trial, no anything. He would just languish there. That's how this whole thing started. The quote is, intentionally setting bail so high as to be unattainable, is simply a less honest method of unlawfully denying bail altogether. And that was Justice Charlie Daniels saying that. That makes a lot of sense to me. When we have bail so high, you leave a poor person no options here.
Absolutely, with no questions whatsoever. And I need to chuckle a little bit. Justice Charlie Daniels and I don't often agree on things, but which keeps things.
He's been around for a while.
He's been around for a while.
He's made some decisions.
But
That's right.
I respect the gentleman. But that point is perfectly on target.
Right.
What the system was doing before was, one, making bail bondsmen rich. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And
Yes.
two,
We're gonna get to that.
it made the whole system of
Absolutely.
release determinate on money.
Right.
And we're trying to get away from that right now.
That's
We
right.
need it to be on the potential danger to the community.
Right.
That is whether you should receive bail or not.
Mm-hmm.
To me, be released back in the community is what is the level of risk
Mm-hmm.
of you doing damage. Now, don't forget that we voted on this back right after the Victoria Martin case.
Yes.
We were so emotionally involved in that as
That's
a
right.
community. And those were repeat offenders, and it seemed like this amendment was a way to fix that.
Right.
And other point is, of course, we don't have enough data. 3 months doesn't tell us anything.
Right, exactly right.
I would like to see us, I like the fact everybody's talking
Right.
and working
Absolutely.
together, but let's work it out at a table instead of going to court about it.
That's right. That's a good point. I appreciate that point a lot. Tom, what bail bondsman was just mentioned, certainly touch on anything you've heard here so far, but the idea that these are family businesses. They've been around a long time. They have some power here. They have, in the legislature, they are heard. Let's put it that way. Have they, in fact, gummed up the system a little bit? I want to pick on the bail bondsman here for a second, but do you know what I'm getting at? At some point, when you insert money, as Serge mentioned, when you get money in the process, you can have winners and losers automatically depending on how thick your wallet is, for gosh sake. What's your deal there for bail bondsmen? Are they having too much power here? What's going on?
Well, they only have as much power as the legislators will allow them to have. The constitutional amendment that has been talked about, really accomplished what Senator Snyder was talking about as far as it was an emotional vote on a very complex issue. Bail bondsmen, that's just one part of the process. There's also, judges, district attorneys, there's law enforcement, there's CYFD, there's, you name it. The list is really big as far as when you take a look at how the criminal justice system, whether it be on a constitutional amendment or with the legislature, can be impacted by all these different interest groups or groups that say they have an interest. I think the bottom line is that you have a justice system that's underfunded. You have a new system, which has I think the governor's administration has done a very good job of highlighting some of the key flaws with that new constitutional amendment.
Fair enough.
Carlsbad, Kerr, and Argus,
Sure.
they did some really great. I won't call it investigative reporting because it was just mainly X's and O's. But when they say that the magistrate court, which is not federal court, okay, it's just magistrate court. 13 were released, 3 failed to appear. So that shows that there's some areas that need to be fixed. But I don't think that the way to fix it, unless you're on a reality show, is to immediately go after somebody in court and say use words like catch and release, repeal and replace. These are much larger conversations, and I think they're valid conversations. They're just getting lost. Their arguments getting lost in the midst of the soundbite.
Right.
And I would want to know, before this went into effect, what was that 13 and 3? I mean, how many people
yes.
didn't show up when we had bail?
That's right.
For poor
That's right.
people.
Exactly right. Vic, staying with you on this, interesting as I read here, Tom mentioned the legislature. There were certainly ways to address this in the legislature,
Right.
legislatively, sort of nibble at the edges a little bit. If it's a setup, if the governor's just taking a hard approach just to get some action moving, seems okay. You know what I mean? Have the legislature take a cut at it this session and fix the problems. What's the matter? Or is this thing so busted according to them, that it can't be fixed. I'm having trouble hearing
Right.
what they're trying to say here. Do you know what I
Well,
mean?
I think, again,
Yeah.
I mean, we all know what's going on. I mean, it's a short session. It's the
Right.
governor's last year in office. This is typically when a governor is a lame duck.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what both sides always say in the last year, and this is something to focus on.
Right.
We all know how well All Crime All the Time does in ratings and to
Regrettably,
get people.
yes.
Again, can we please blame the loser criminals and not the legislators? I think that as somebody who's been around these legislative sessions for a couple decades, I can't imagine something substantial being done in a 30-day budget session when our economy is still in the
Situation, yes.
toilet. I mean,
Yes.
we're talking about a second recession in this country, and we're not out of the first one from '08. And so it's just, I think these are things that continue, as we talked about earlier. This is fodder for political ads and campaign mailers from
Right.
PACs.
That's right. Catch and release, all this stuff's very catchy. We'll have to end it there now. Let me tell you this. There's an old joke that the only two certainties in life are death and taxes. We all know that. But we tend to prepare a lot more for taxes than we do for death. Only about a third of people make any plans about the end of life. And Gail Rubin has made it her mission to change that. She's an author, a speaker, and a death educator. Ms. Rubin uses a mix of humor and education to get people more comfortable talking about what they want the end of life to look like. She recently coordinated the first, quote, Before I Die, end quote, festival here in Albuquerque and plans to make it an annual event. Ms. Rubin spoke with NMIF correspondent Megan Kamerick about why thinking about your death can be a good way to celebrate your life.